And this is coming from the Guardian. I get it, there's a lot of leftists on the Guardian's editorial board, but every once in a while, and as we know, even people like Glenn Greenwald, that I would say is probably predominantly a leftist as well, are at least somewhat objectionable and willing to openly discuss ideas that don't fit their own leftist predominant narrative. And those people I have tremendous respect for. This person, and it is an opinion piece, so that's obviously going to have, that's probably a big part of the reason why I probably am going to find myself easier to agree with the premise of this article, because it's opinion based, which when you're left leaning, that's the problem with established media outlets, is they create an atmosphere of being aligned with a certain side of the political spectrum, and then all of their editorial staff more or less have to fall in line predominantly with that same kind of narrative. And that's the most devastating aspect of what you would construe in the modern era as establishment media, is they become so entrenched with the politics, with political ideologies, they basically have no grasp of how people that are apolitical or non-political or don't believe in masters or serfs, they don't even know how. You'll never hear very many people ever, well, you'll hear none. You'll hear no people coming out in the establishment media talking about what it is to be against forced subjugation, slavery, the modern iteration of it, which is what we call statism, right? Or the religion of statism, forced subjugation. Blame the identity apostles. They led us down this path to populism. Blame the identity apostles. They led us down this path to populism. Simon Jenkins. With its over-defensive advocacy of minorities, the left has jeopardized half a century of liberalism. Let's start into the actual meat of the article. I have no tribe. That's the first very short 4-word sentence in this article. I have no comfort blanket. No default button that enables me to join the prevailing hysteria and cry in unison. Of course, it's all the fault of X. Meanwhile, we everywhere see the familiar landscape clouding over. There are new partings of the ways, disoriented soldiers wandering the battlefield, licking wounds. The liberal center cannot hold. It cries with Yeats, "What rough beast! Its hour come round at last," slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. I confess I find all this somehow exhilarating. Cliches of left and right have lost all meaning, and institutions their certainty. Even in France and Italy, European Union is falling from grace. A right-wing U.S. president wins an election by appealing to the left. In Britain, UKIP can plausibly claim to be supplanting the Labour Party. A Tory prime minister attacks capitalism, while Labour supports Trident. Small wonder Castro gave up and died. Conventional wisdom holds that it is the center left that has lost the plot. The howls that greeted Brexit, Donald Trump, and Europe's new right are those of liberals tossed from the moral high ground that they thought they owned. Worse, their victors were not the familiar bogies of wealth and privilege, but an oppressed underclass that had the effrontery to refer to a liberal establishment elite. Paul Krugman, field marshal of an American left, stood last week on his battered tank, the New York Times, and wailed at Trump supporters. "I don't fully understand this resentment. Why don't the poor blame the conservatives?" He had to assume the answer lay in the new great explanation, the politics of identity liberalism. He is right. It is 20 years since the philosopher Richard Rorty predicted that a Trump-like strongman would emerge to express how badly educated Americans feel about having their manners dictated to them by college graduates. This prediction has now gone viral. Likewise, the historian Arthur Schlesinger warned that a rising campus intolerance of offense crimes and political correctness would endanger America's national glue, its collective liberal consciousness. The latest guru on the What Trump Means circuit is the U.S. political psychologist Jonathan Haidt. Conversing with Nick Clegg at an Intelligence Squared event in London last week, he was asked over and over the Krugman question, why did poor people vote right wing? The answer was simple. There's no longer a right wing or a left. There are nations and there are tribes within nations, both growing even more assertive. Statism, those that follow the religion of statism, and those that reject the religion of statism. Those on the left try to seek out their ways, although for the most part, they want to just take over, right, the apparatus of the state. Whereas those on the right, which would be more individualistic, more strong, more, self-reliant, self-sufficient, they don't want to. They reject the state completely. This is the ultimate great divide, is those who are self-sufficient, can take care of themselves, don't need central planners to take care of them, and those that feel they do. That is the modern ultimate divide today. And you know what? Look at the world that you live in. It's the leftists that are truly, their fear or their unwillingness to take care and provide for themselves and their family and those they love, those they truly care about, that is what's brought about the great rise, the growth of the state, the imposition of central planners into the lives, hearts, and minds of the masses. It's those who are unwilling and too weak to stand up and defend themselves and the people that are around them that should assume that role, task, or responsibility. It's your unwillingness to do so that has created this rise of statism. This new world reinvention of totalitarian collectivism. It is you, just like this article, just like this author of this article is presented. It is you that has created the world we live in today. Now, you can fucking get pissed off at the people that are now rising up against you, whether they're good, bad, or anywhere in between. You can get pissed off at them all you want. But you are ultimately the reason why it's going to, everything that you're going to see that's going to come to fruition is a reaction to what you have done beforehand. But no, don't take the blame. Don't assume that role. Don't assume that responsibility. That's okay. But ultimately, like I said, when all the pain, devastation, and destruction has all come to fruition, at some stage of the game, you're going to realize you could have prevented it all. You could have at least, if not prevented, greatly decreased or declined the amount of pain and suffering by just owning up and accepting your personal responsibility and bringing this stuff to fruition. But because the leftists, the collectivists, the control freaks, and sociopaths, or the mindless minions that are willing to go along to get along, are unwilling to stand up and own up and acknowledge their responsibility and how we've come to this world that we live in today, this situation that we all find ourselves placed in today, until you're unwilling to accept and own up to that responsibility, it's only going to continue to get worse. So you keep playing your game. Keep thinking you're going to win that fucking ultimate battle, that ultimate war, right? I'm going to tell you right here now, it'll never happen. We will all end up being losers if you continue playing this fucking game and going down this road. I'll place a link to this article in the description of this video so you can continue on to read it. But I think I've read enough. I think you know enough about how I think, my mentality, and what I would be responded to, and anything else that's put forth in this kind of article. So you go on, you continue to read it, think for yourself, like I always say, think for yourself. Critical thinking is the most important thing we can all do in this modern era of forced subjugation, of propaganda, of bullshit narratives. Think for yourself, use objective reason. Do some work, do some hard work. Investigate, research. Do what needs to be done before you form an opinion. If you form an opinion before you've done that work, you have not come to a properly logically deduced conclusion or opinion. That's the truth of the matter. This is Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.